It's tea time, positive tea time, and we are spilling all of it right here in this space created by two crazy, fun-loving besties. It's a no-judgment zone for sharing stories of hope, faith, love, growth, and most of all, grace and gratitude. So join us as we get ready to share some positivity and get a fresh perspective on life.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Spillin Positiva-Tea. And today we will be chatting with a dear friend, Sheryl Peter-Kirton.
Yay, Sheryl.
Sheryl, welcome.
Welcome,
Thank you for having
Sheryl.
me. And we are so happy to have you. And this is a conversation, and we're going to be talking about living with a parent with Alzheimer's. And Sheryl will share her personal story. Sheryl, thank you so much for joining us and for being willing and open to share this story. So, Natasha.
Yes, thank you, Sheryl, for being here. And thank you to Lloyd Tea, our sponsor. Today we have mint thyme, which is peppermint, and spearmint.
Spearmint, yeah.
Spearmint,
You can
sorry.
smell it.
And
Amazing.
It's so good. It's lovely. It's refreshing. And all the packaging is eco-friendly. So, Lloyd's Tea, thank you for being such a great sponsor and for giving us a mint thyme today.
Yes, we are going to be minting the thyme with Sheryl.
Exactly. Sheryl, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us about yourself. Who is Sheryl Peter-Kirton?
Sheryl Peter-Kirton. Wow, that's a question in and of itself. I am a mother of 3 boys. I'm a wife of a lovely, wonderful husband.
Yes, he is.
Yes, I know you're a fan. I'm a daughter of an amazing father and grandfather. And I'm a sister of a wonderful brother.
And what do you do during your day? What is your day? What's your profession?
Yeah, what do you do?
Let's give us a total Sheryl.
Total Sheryl. Well, I am Chief Digital Programming with the Central Bank of Barbados. So we live the life of digital transformation, and I'm really enjoying it over the last 3 years.
Oh, wonderful.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And other than that, most of my life is spent right now because of the boys at the tennis courts by the Barbados
All
Tennis
3 of them are
Association.
playing for Barbados, are national tennis players,
Yes,
right?
all 3 of them.
And one of them is top seed, I was told.
Well, my eldest is the number 1 in under 18s right now. My second, who's 11, is the number 1 in under 14s. As well as under 12s, and my last born is number 2 in under 12s.
Wow.
Have a round of applause.
Round of applause.
Let me tell you, you are a mommy that is winning, spilling and winning.
Thank you.
Spelling and winning, and always involved, and has a, your husband's also very involved.
Very much so.
And a lot of who you are as a person is based, comes from, your upbringing as well.
Yes.
And that involvement. And today we're talking to you about Alzheimer's because you've had a journey where that is concerned.
Yes.
And it specifically with your mom. Tell us about your relationship with your mom and what that was like.
And what she was like.
She was like.
Althea. Well, my mother's name was Althea, and I was the best present that she had because I was born the day before her birthday.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I never knew that.
Yes. And we had, I would say, a passionate relationship. We're very similar, I'm told. My brother likes to mention that frequently, Brian. And as a result, we had a tendency to clash. Our personalities clashed a lot, but there was a lot of love. She was very involved in our life. She was a registered nurse. So she's Dominican born. In the late 60s, early 70s, she went to Jamaica and she studied nursing. She raised 2 children, myself and my brother. She was very involved in our life, very much involved in education. So we used to have homework at home after doing the homework for school, whether it was under the tree or what have you, we had things that we had to do.
Right.
And I think that really gave us a good solid grounding in life in general. When we migrated to Barbados, because I'm not Barbadian born.
Where are you from, Sheryl?
I was born in Jamaica.
Oh, you're Jamaica.
Yard.
Yes. But to Dominican parents, so the culture is a bit mixed up.
Right.
And when we moved here, she did nursing. She would have, practiced her profession here. But she was always very much with us. When I had my firstborn, Xavier, she was very much involved in his life.
Yes.
She would watch him for us in the beginning before he started daycare. Even after he was going to daycare, after daycare, he was at Nana, because she was clear, not Granny, Nana, at Nana's house. And definitely for a good few years, that was his all, really and truly. So popcorn, all his little habits, he really picked up from that point of view. And the tennis came from my parents. So they learned to play tennis. They exposed myself and my brother to tennis as a result. So my brother, thanks to all of that, benefited from a tennis scholarship.
Oh, nice.
In his youth. And I distinctly remember Mommy starting Zav with tennis by hitting with him in the driveway.
Wow.
So very much involved. She
It's
loved
a legacy.
I think they really started a legacy there.
Yeah,
It kind of clearly skipped a generation and just introduced it.
Do you play at all?
I haven't played since I was a teenager, not consistently. And I was never really into the competitive tennis the way my brother was. But I clearly, it skipped a generation and it came through me indirectly as a result. Mommy liked plants. She loved plants. So she always had her garden. She was always in the garden. So she loved tennis as well. She liked to read. She was very articulate, very bright, loved a good joke. Loved a good argument as well.
Sprightly, very sprightly.
Very
Energy.
energetic, passionate. She was a force. I think she was the unfound force of nature. I would describe her. And I mean, and like sushi, she's an acquired taste.
Yeah.
I like that.
But yeah, mommy was there a lot. Yeah, very present. Yeah.
And you know, in our age, the age that we are in, you know, there's this feeling now that we have to start taking care of our parents. We become kind of the parents to our parents. Tell me, what was that journey like with your mother?
Well, I think even before Alzheimer's, because Mommy unfortunately developed Alzheimer's, it was a bit of a challenge. There was a dichotomy, because here's this person that raised you, took care of you, kind of honed you into who you are. And now, as you rightly said, you need to take care of them in a way that was too soon, because Mommy was in her early 60s when she was diagnosed.
When you first started to notice?
Well, not so much when we first started to notice, but when we first started to notice, and in retrospect, it started, I would say, probably as far back as maybe 2002, 2001. But it really presented as a change in behavior. And you just say, and you at that point, you're just saying, okay, mommy just getting all miserable.
Yeah,
you know, she's different, you know, and that in itself was a challenge, because she wasn't being the way we were used to her being.
What were some of the first things you saw?
It was subtle, so I can't even put my finger on it. But you know, I think we all kind of connect through energies, and her energy was different.
Yeah,
not bad, but it just wasn't the mom that
you knew.
I was used to, and it caused challenges for us. I mean, or there was a rift in our relationship as a result of that. But it only became clear why she was being the way she was being after the diagnosis.
Okay.
Zav was probably about 6, so that's maybe around 2010, 2011, where we noticed first that she started to forget things. And you'd have the same conversation with her like 3 times, 4 times, and it seemed as though it was totally new every time she brought it up. And I mean, so myself, my brother, my father, we experienced it separately. So it's not like we were, you know, gathering and connecting the dots. But in our mind, we're observing this all the time. And where it really, I think, came to a head is, as I mentioned, she used to take care of Zav in the afternoons. She called my brother one day saying she couldn't find Zav. And my brother knows me, so he's a smart man. He did not call his sister, he called his father. And he said, you know, Mommy's saying that she can't find Zav. And he said, but I don't understand why. She just helped me get Zav ready to go and get a haircut. So even though they'd probably left maybe 15 minutes ago, she called him in a panic because she couldn't find Zav.
But he was with your dad going to get a haircut?
He was with my dad at the time. And she helped him get ready to go to that haircut.
Okay.
So
that was the
first major flag. I mean, yes, that you have the conversations going over, but in the back of your mind, it's like, okay, she's just getting all weird. And then at that point, we were like, okay, something is definitely wrong. Before we would have said, Mom, you might need to go to the doctor to check, having the repeat conversations. She said, no, that's just a part of aging. That's just normal.
And because she was a nurse.
Exactly. And she's very stubborn. So that's normal. That's normal sign of aging. And so you listen to it, but in the back of your mind, it's like, no, that's not really.
Telling you that.
But that really came to a head, and my brother and I, because we had to get her to the doctor, and to tell her mom, you need to go to a neurologist. I mean, how are you going to do that? Mommy's not going. So I had to, play on in emotions, and I we pretended, my brother and I conspired and pretended something was wrong with him. And that we needed, I was like, Mommy, I need your help. You really have to come with me. So I picked her up and my brother met us at the neurologist and we took her. And when we got there, we were like, yeah, you're going to see the doctor.
Okay.
And
How did she react?
surprisingly, she just kind of smirked and she went with us. And we saw the doctor. They do a series of tests because there's no real way that you can test for Alzheimer's.
Oh, really?
They go, to me, it's like a process of elimination. So they did, if I remember correctly, an MRI, and there's this test that they do. I'm not a doctor, but I remember a clock because I think something to do with spatial awareness is affected by Alzheimer's. And they did the test, and coming out of that, the result was that she had MCI, which is mild cognitive impairment.
Okay.
And what they said is that it's not definite that she has Alzheimer's, but it tends to present as a precondition to Alzheimer's. And now at that point, and I'm going to be jumping all over the place, Mommy had gone to Jamaica in 2001, I want to say, to do her master's in public health. And she ultimately returned at the end of the year early, and she didn't finish her master's. And that was unlike her, and that was a cause of a rift as well. And she decided at that point she's not going back to work. And so imagine after you spent this money to go and do a master's, you don't finish the master's, you come back and you're like, I'm done, I'm retired.
Right.
And so again, that was the start of that's not normal behavior.
That was before
that was about I want to say 8 to 9 years before the diagnosis.
So she probably recognized something in herself.
In retrospect, I think she did. And as a nurse, I think it was the best decision not to go back to work.
Right.
And I mean, I suspect that maybe things, and because Alzheimer's affects your ability to learn new things, going to do a master's would have stretched that.
Yeah.
And they do say that you can start to present with Alzheimer's, but it's not known to you for up to 20 years before the diagnosis.
Oh, really?
So there's already impairment well before you start to sense it or people around you sense it. And so it started to make a bit more sense maybe why she made the decision that she did. At that point, she was still able to go about her day-to-day life. We rallied around her, and I think that made her feel better.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
I mean, I think in having discussions with different persons, some families respond differently.
Yeah.
And in our case, I think we just kind of rallied around her a bit more.
Yeah.
I think each of us represented different things to her, so we interacted with her in different ways.
Yeah.
And I think overall that made her feel more comfortable knowing that we were present. But it still didn't stop her saying that Alzheimer's was foolishness. So that diagnosis is foolishness. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to ask you about in
Yeah.
terms of when she was actually diagnosed and she got that response. How did she respond to
that,
hearing
I thought it was nonsense.
Yeah.
She said that doctor doesn't know what he's talking about. That's just normal aging. And so we're confused because, I mean, we're seeing and feeling the difference.
Yeah.
She's a registered nurse and she's like, that's nonsense, that's normal aging. And initially she didn't want us to talk about it.
Okay.
So, and Alzheimer's, I think the biggest danger of Alzheimer's, it's not something that people talk about. I mean, you don't go and say, so-and-so has Alzheimer's.
Right.
You tend to keep it to yourself. The older persons tend to want you to keep it to yourself and you want to honor that. And that in itself, I think, is a dangerous thing because Alzheimer's is all around us. I mean, it is more around us than you know, and you only realize it when you talk about it.
Yes,
I mean, it's not part of your introduction to someone. Hi, my mother has Alzheimer's. But when you are open and honest and just have that conversation, then you'll find that somebody says, yes, my grandmother has it, or my aunt has it, or and then you realize it kind of opens your eyes to the fact that it exists, and it's almost existing among us in the shadows.
Yes.
It could be sitting beside you right now, and you don't know
even know,
because you're not aware of it.
Yeah.
I was speaking when Mom got the diagnosis, we reached out. So I'm a bit of a control freak, Maria.
Really?
Just a little bit.
Really, guys? Okay.
I don't know if you picked that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that so?
Let me sip my tea and mind my business on that one.
Just a little bit of a control freak.
Okay.
And so the first thing that I certainly did is I went searching on Google.
You were a researcher.
I went
a
looking on
researcher.
Google,
That's
right?
it.
Alzheimer's in Barbados. And back at that time, there was nothing.
There really was nothing?
There was nothing. I mean, the one thing that we found was on one of the sites, there's Alzheimer's Disease International. And on there it listed all the member countries, and Barbados was one of them.
Oh, wow.
And they listed the Barbados Alzheimer's Association.
Okay.
There's no website, and there was a number. And we reached out to the Barbados Alzheimer's Association. We subsequently became members, and we spoke to the president. And the president is Pamelia Brereton. And she honestly has a really special place in the heart of myself and my
wow.
family, because Pamelia not only knows about Alzheimer's, but she's lived through it. And her story is kind of interesting in that on one side of her family, her mother's side, her mom had Alzheimer's, her grandmother had Alzheimer's.
Wow.
She had 3 brothers who had Alzheimer's.
Wow.
And on her father's side, they have centenarians.
Centenarians.
Yeah.
So there's a juxtaposition of the two.
Yes,
Really?
and I think that's amazing. Now, I mean, Pamelia is this tiny woman. I mean, with heels, she's probably 5 foot, if so much. Tiny, really well put together.
Force to be reckoned with.
Forced to be reckoned with. Tiny, but a really big spirit. And she, the Barbados Alzheimer's Association, started as a steering committee in 1996. I hope I got the date right. And in 2005, I believe it was, they then became a registered
Organization. Association.
and then in 2007 they re-registered as a charity.
Okay.
They've been a member of the Alzheimer's Disease International since 2005, and so she really has been the president from inception.
Wow.
Okay.
And she's lived the experience. She talks to you from a position of knowing because she's seen it. She
Which
saw
helps,
it as a
right?
child. It definitely helps.
It helps you.
So she gave us tips. She gave us a sense of what to look out for, which is really scary to hear how the disease progresses.
What were some of the things she told you?
She said ultimately, you want to keep them in positive spirits. You want to keep that energy positive around them because that's how they connect. She warned that you're not going to be able to predict what memory is going to disappear first. You know, logic would think, okay, maybe the one that was formed first is the one that goes first and you go back like that. It just feels random sometimes. She mentioned disorientation and the fact that because they become disoriented, then it affects their emotions and the way they respond. There's frustration. I think a lot of that comes from a position of fear. You know, what is going to happen to me?
Yeah.
She mentioned the dressing. So what you find as they progress, they start to layer. They will put multiple sets of clothes on at the same time.
Did you see that with your mother?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, mommy did that. I really can't remember when in the progression she did that, but she did that. They start to wander. So if you don't keep an eye on them, they will literally wander outside and wander on the road. They wander around the house. So even in the house, to me, their temporal order gets out of whack.
Okay.
So they tend to wander more at night than during the day. And so she would literally just walk around during the day. She warned that there would be times where she would recognize and sometimes they wouldn't. And again, it's been about 12 plus years, so I don't remember all of it.
Yeah, it's fine.
And I think it's probably a protective mechanism as well.
Yeah.
Of course.
But I mean, Pamelia warned us as to what we could do. At the time, we wanted to know, I mean, is it something that we would be able to handle on our own? And it varies from person to person. So some persons respond, or when they have Alzheimer's, they start to respond aggressively. My mother was a bit different in that I found my mother, she loved energy. She was loud. She laughed. She joked. As she progressed, she didn't like noises.
Really?
She tended to speak in a whisper.
Yeah.
She was very soft spoken, and that was a bit confusing to see because it's the opposite of who she was.
So you're seeing her a completely different person.
Yeah.
And how did you
handle
with
how
that?
did you guys cope with that as a family? Yeah.
As a family, we banded together, and I think we fed off of each other well, but I think we responded to it differently. I thought I was a strong one for the family. I later realized when they threw me under the bus, so to speak, all 3 of them, including my husband. I probably was more in denial than I realized. So as
Protective mechanism.
I think so as well. I thought I was being strong. I was researching. I searched everything about Alzheimer's that I could put my hands on. I joined the association. I became active in the association. September is World Alzheimer's Month. September 21st is World Alzheimer's Day. The Alzheimer's Association tends to have a seminar in September. And so I spoke at 1 or 2 of their events. which was more, I think, therapy for me.
you, yeah.
Because I think the act of speaking about it and getting it out there, you don't feel like this is this bad secret,
secret.
you know,
Yeah.
this seedy secret that you have to keep.
And also, it kept you busy, and you're that kind of
Yes.
person who needs to be doing something.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It was
if
my
you
way of
stop-
fighting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, if you stop, then you then have to then really take on exactly what this is.
Yeah.
And what you don't know, because there's, you don't know what's going to happen. You just know that the person that you've known all your life is going to disappear, because we are our memories. I mean,
Yes. That's a
wow.
beautiful
That is
statement.
very
That's
true.
Say that
Yeah.
again.
we are our memories.
We are
Yeah.
our memories.
And it didn't occur until mommy had Alzheimer's, honestly, because you just go along life, right?
Yeah.
But when you encounter the reality that the person that knew you, formed you, literally was there from conception, knows everything about you, is going to ultimately forget you, that kind of rocks your foundation. And when you really think about it, you exist because people remember you. You exist in your space because you remember yourself. So who are you if you don't have your memories? And who are you if the people that formed you
I loved you.
don't remember you? And I mean, I don't think there's a way of describing it. And Pamelia says that unless you go through it, you don't get it. Yes, you're right. You're seeing the glossing. You don't get it unless you go through it. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. This is a safe space for all of us, and you are helping somebody out there who does not know what to do, having gotten the diagnosis with their family. And you're so
sure.
strong, Sheryl. You're
Very,
so strong.
very.
You are so strong, and vulnerability is your strength.
Yes.
So showing it right now is not a bad thing.
Definitely.
And we have you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was scary. I don't like feeling helpless. I don't think any of us do, and it's a very helpless feeling because there's literally nothing you can do to help them outside of just being there for them. There's no medication that you can give that's going to make them come back, or that's going to help the memories grow back, that's going to address the disorder. There's
Yeah. It's tough, and I understand because I went through it with my
Her grandmother,
and
my
my
grandmother. So
I get it.
yeah. And it really is something we don't talk enough about. We don't.
We don't. I met through going to the seminars that the Alzheimer's Association would hold. Thank you. Yes. Don't mess up Heidi's work. You know, we need to keep this face forever. Through that, I met some really wonderful people. People who have gone through it, who are going through it. There's a very good friend. I'll just say her initials, JB. After speaking, she came up to me. I'd never met her before, and she said she really connected with what I said. And it turned out her mom was also a nurse, was also in her early 60s when she was diagnosed. She also had a younger brother, as I did. And it was just surreal just watching that progression. And she's still a very good friend of mine today. I mean, we would WhatsApp each other. You know, some days you just have a hard day and you just feel down, and
And you miss your mother.
you miss your mother.
Yeah,
But
you miss her being present
present,
even before she's not.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
I mean, I used to wonder, would I rather if she had died suddenly? And I don't think up to now I have the answer to that, because they call Alzheimer's, the journey. The journey, it's a long road. I can't remember what it is now, but it feels as though you are forever mourning the death of a memory. I think that's the best way to
Yes.
describe
Oh,
it.
wow.
Absolutely.
That's it.
So it's like an
perfectly said.
infinite loop of death.
Yeah.
And so mommy passed away in 2018. And funny enough, sometimes when I speak of it, it feels as though she died before she did.
died.
And
Yeah.
it's not that because the person that I knew, the energy that I knew, she wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I saw somebody who looked like my mother and could have been a relative to my mother, but she wasn't my mother. And I don't know if that were really the case, or if it's just how I chose to handle it so that I would not go more crazy than I did.
Right. So you don't fall apart.
So you don't fall apart. When it came to, at some point, we could not leave mommy alone. So we had to find somewhere for her to be. And so we had a place that we used to send her to during the day. Daddy would drive her down and pick her up in the evening. And that at a point, we ultimately then decided to have home care. So we met Tanya White, who's an angel. She was Mummy's nursing assistant.
Yes.
She spent the days with Mummy, and my brother and my dad lived with Mummy.
Right.
So during the day, she'd be there, and then Daddy and my brother would come back, and they'd handle it in the evenings. And one of the things that Pamelia always warned us about, and I'm glad we spoke to her early, is that you have to remember to keep an eye on the caregivers.
Yes.
Because
yes.
the caregivers,
Yes. That's big. That's big.
they are affected sometimes more than the person.
Yeah.
And when you have someone who's ailing in any form, but someone who has Alzheimer's at home, you never really get a break. So I didn't live at home. I was, with my husband and my family. But they lived in it.
Yeah.
And so I kept monitoring them to see, because you'll see changes in behavior when the stress gets to them. And at some point, I asked, do you think Mommy needs to be in a home? And I think in their own way, they tried to send signals, but I wasn't ready to receive it. And when I think about it, and so I think they tried to hold it together until I was ready, even though I didn't know I wasn't ready.
Right.
And then at one point, we sat in the kitchen, I remember, and I asked, because there was an incident, do you think Mommy needs to be in a home? And I think that was the time we all broke down, because you have this guilt in saying yes.
Yeah. You do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
Totally.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up shortly.
Yeah.
Okay. You get this guilt from being about making that decision to put someone in a home. There's this helplessness because you're saying, I can't take care of somebody who took care of me.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think Pamelia walked us through the fact that is okay as well. That is better sometimes to make that decision, because they're going to be in a space where they're persons who know what to look for and they know how to take care of them, and they don't have the emotional attachment.
Yes.
Because when you have the emotional attachment, you're always comparing what was to what is.
Yeah.
And so that was a hard transition. We found a home that we thought represented who she was well. And then you have to deal with the guilt of her being in the home. We visited my father and my brother, the Rock, so they were like clockwork. They would go on set days all the time. I was a bit random because I could only last 15 minutes visiting her without crying. And I've lost my train of thought again.
No, that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay.
And that's because you're coming face to face with the reality of that she's not who you've always known. This vibrant person has disappeared in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
And I'll share with you, my mother took care of my grandfather and my grandmother, and they both had Alzheimer's. And my grandmother basically became like a child at some point, because there are times when I would have to go to their house, and my mother would be like, you need to talk to her, because I could see the exhaustion on Mommy when it came to Granny. And I would have to go and talk to her and say, now, why did you do that? Like, she became the child, and I was the only one. I was the first grandchild, so I was the only one that she would really take on. And then after I spoke to her, she would, like, behave and not give Mommy trouble. And then she would say, well, why did you tell Natasha? So it was, and I could see the wear and tear it was having on Mommy. So while I understand that Mommy felt a bit guilty as well, but as her daughter and seeing what she was going through, having to deal with that, I said, you know what, it's better for Granny to have to go somewhere
and with people that are professionals that know.
Precisely.
Yeah, and that's part of the love. The part of the love is recognizing where you need to place your family so that they can get the best possible care.
Amen.
And that you can support them even in that space.
Yeah.
So, Sheryl, this has been amazing. I want to thank you
for
sharing, because I know it's not an easy journey. I mean, I've been there with you, and I know this has been tough, and to even be here to talk about it. But as you said, you don't know who you're going to help. You've shared information about the Barbados Alzheimer's Association and the work that they're doing. And so if you are going through this with a family member, remember there's a resource there for you. And they need help. And they need support.
Yes.
And we all need to understand what both of you have gone through with your family members so that we can support you better and support others who may be going through. So thank you. You are a warrior. You are your mommy.
Yes.
As I told you today, your mom used to say to me, I just want you to be, Sheryl, to be happy.
Yeah.
Sheryl is happy, and Sheryl is here telling the story to help someone else.
And so brave. And
Filling the
so-
positivity. So brave.
So brave and vulnerable to share, a piece of you that was so tender.
Yeah.
So I think, really, really salute you for that. Thank you for sharing with us and for sharing with everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So thank you.
So thank you for joining us today on this really special episode. Thanks, Sheryl, again. Thank you to Lloyd for being our sponsor and their special Mint Time. And we're going to definitely be sharing a giveaway with you for Mint Time tea.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, and that's it. So thank you, everybody.
Stay safe.
Stay safe and stay positive.
Thanks.